Greetings, Joey Fabian here. I thought I would start filling out my channel with bass lessons. So here's bass lesson number 1. If you've never touched the instrument, this is how I would start off with you. Okay? So one of the things we want to do is make sure the instrument is in tune. And there are apps you can get for that, or you can use a keyboard if you have one handy. You might want to know what the names of the notes are. The strings are numbered 4, 3, 2, 1, and that is E, A, D, and G. Okay? There's a way to tune your bass to itself. If you can get one of the strings close, you can use the 5th fret fretted note, meaning you're pushing the string down onto the fingerboard here, this piece of wood, and then you would play the open, meaning you're not fretting it, 3rd string, play the open 3rd string and match it to the 5th fret of the 4th string. They should both be A's, and you can do that all the way up. This would be a D here on the 5th fret of the 3rd string to an open D string, the 2nd string. They should be the same. And then the 5th fret of the 2nd string is a G to the open 1st string, which is also G. Or you can just tune to me right now, E, A, D, and G. Get yourself a tuner, and I won't do this every time. Okay, so holding the bass, that's the next thing. I recommend a strap. Have the bass in a consistent position. You might not know right now what that position should be because you're just starting. That's understandable. But as you play, you'll figure out where you like it. I generally like my bass a little higher, not way high, but this is hanging. If I was standing, it would be in the same place. That's important too. Have a consistent feel. You don't want to be having the bass be here one day and here another day and here another day. So if you're sitting with it, you don't have a strap, generally this curve here would fit on your right leg if you're right-handed, and your left leg if you're a left-handed player. And speaking of that, I will try my darndest to refer to this hand as the plucking hand and my left hand as the fretting hand. Okay, so once you got your bass in tune and in a fairly comfortable position, I'm just going to talk about what your right hand does today. So at this angle, you can see that my hand is, I'm not like this, I'm not irked out, I'm fairly relaxed, just laying there. My thumb is actually on the strings. That's a good way to kind of just put your hand at first. Now I'm going to say I'm going to pluck the 3rd string. That's what we're going to do first. So I'm going to bring my hand up like this, and you can see I'm still like that in the angle here. Ideally you'd be like this because of the path of your tendons going through the carpal tunnel. You don't want to be bent, but that'd be really hard to play like this. So you're a little relaxed and it's a little bent, you can see. Okay? Now when you strike the string, you don't want to yank on it up. You want to, I like to tell my students to think of it as almost as if you're pushing the string into the bass. And then you're going to come, when you're plucking the 3rd string, you're going to come to rest on the 4th string. This is called the rest stroke. You can also see when I'm plucking that looks like I'm walking. 2 feet are never on the ground at the same time. As soon as one leg takes a step out, the other leg pops up, or index and middle finger. There are other ways to play a bass besides this, which is called pizzicato. You can also play with a pick. You can, of course, there's that stuff. You can play kind of like this. People will do, but the most common way of playing the electric bass these days is like this. Another thing about the way my hand is positioned is the middle finger is a little longer than the index finger. So in order to get an even feel and sound from getting the same amount of skin grabbing the string when you pluck it, you want to sort of point your fingers back this way towards the bridge. Okay? Okay, so once you are moving a little bit on a string, let's start to try to move around a little bit. I'm going to play one note on the A string, the third string, and one note on the D string, the second string. And then I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to start with the index, alternate to the second string with the middle finger, and because of the rest stroke, now my middle finger is resting on the third string, so I'm going to now strike the third string with my middle finger and then the second string with my index. And now I'll be back at the beginning of the exercise. So it's a 4-note exercise. Index, middle, index, excuse me, index, middle, middle, index, starting over. Index, middle, middle, index, index, middle, middle, index, index, middle, middle, index. You see that's a more efficient way to play. So, once you've got that, let's try to do 2 notes on each string. And this will combine more of the alternating and the dragging a little more. So you'll alternate on this string, the third string, and then you'll climb up to the second string and alternate there. And of course we will drag or rake, it is also called, moving back to the third string, the A, and I'm going to play with the middle and then index, and then back up to D, middle, index. So this becomes an 8-note exercise now. Index, middle, index, middle, middle, index, middle, index, index, middle, index, middle, middle, index, middle, index. Okay? Alright, once you're feeling good with that, you want to move across all 4 strings now. So I'm going to start now on the 4th string with my index finger. I'm going to play the index on 4, middle on 3, index on 2, middle on the 1. And then now because of the rest stroke, I'm going to take the middle finger all the way down to 4 again. To start it over and do it one more time. Middle on 2, and middle on 3. And now my middle is set on the 4th string, ready to begin the exercise again. Middle on 4, index on 3, middle on 2, index on 1, and then drag index all the way down. And now you're really at the beginning of it again, because you're back to the index finger. So 4th string index, 3 middle, 2 index, 1 middle, 2 middle, 3 middle, 4 middle, 3 index, 2 middle, 1 index, 2 index, 3 index. So that's the whole thing. And I'll just do it flowing through a couple times without talking, starting with my index finger. Okay, so another thing that you can do now is just ramp that up, play 2 notes on each string. Index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, middle, index, index, middle, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, middle, index, index, middle, middle, index. And now you're back to the index finger on the 4th string. Okay, One thing you might want to think about as you're doing these things is keeping a steady pace. That is one way to ensure that you aren't building unnecessary motion into what you play. Do it as slow as you need to make sure you're doing it correctly. And again, the steady pace thing helps keep you from maybe overshooting, going a little too far. Always be trying to think ahead. Do it at a pace where you can keep your brain ahead of what your fingers are doing. And that's how you train yourself to do these physical motions to where they're just fluid and you don't think about them ultimately, and they're perfect. So, nice and slow. Also notice my right hand thumb. Last thing I'm going to talk about. Muting is an issue with stringed instruments. So when you're playing the bass, your left hand will mute the higher strings when you're playing the lower strings in general. When you're playing the higher strings, you have to deal with the lower strings. Figure out a way to keep them quiet. So there are a few methods. My favorite method is the one I use, of course, the floating thumb. And what that means is, so I'm playing the fourth string, my thumb is just hanging out down here. It is making contact with the instrument. I don't feel comfortable with my thumb just hanging out in the air, although I'm not planting it solidly either, but it is touching the bass. It seems to be very comfortable to do that. It helps me to regulate how hard I'm playing the instrument. If I actually know how far away I am, somehow it gives me a little comfort. And then I play the A string, and because of the rest stroke, I'm keeping the fourth string quiet. However, when I get to the second string, the rest stroke is dealing with the third string, but the fourth string could be making noise, so I'm going to let my thumb it's just touching. It's not like, you don't want to do this. Some people will do that. Like I said, I like the floating thumb. Just letting it hang out there, nice and lazily. It's just hanging out there, but it's doing some important work. Okay? And then I move up to the first string, and my thumb is now making contact with both the fourth and third strings, the E and the A strings. And then you have a quiet bass. You only hear the notes you want to hear, the ones you're playing, and nothing else. And as I do this all the way down, I just let my thumb come back off. Sometimes when I'm playing the fourth string, I will notice that I will sort of rest stroke into this part of my thumb here. It's like right there, I'm touching the thumb right there. Anyway, if you have any questions, you can send me an email at joeyfabianonbass@gmail.com, or just leave a comment down in the comment section, and I will try to get to you as soon as I can. And I hope this goes well. I plan on keeping this going for a while, so if you want to learn how to play chord substitutions over changes to solo, stick with it. All right.